Well, we're going to be playing Strategic Command, American Civil War, the new DLCs, Wars in America. Uh, Sorry, moving around a bit, getting things settled here. Um, and we are playing what is it? The um, Eagle and the Empire. Yeah, that's the battle. Oh, you're actually fighting the Civil War, not some obscure war against Canadians or Mexico. Sort of. Sort of. What we're fighting is a war in which the French have come in on the Confederacy side. So that's who we're playing as, is the Confederacy. And I thought, well, at first I thought this was very far fetched because, yes, a lot of the big powers in Europe would love to have seen America divided in two. It would have been massively in their strategic interest. Well, the British are not in yet. There's a possibility, though I don't know if it's a likelihood. Um, and I thought, yeah, slavery, is Europe really going to get behind being, fighting for slavery? And then I thought, as a good what if sort of person, that Napoleon III really wants to set up his puppet state and he did, um, in Mexico. And what if some American politicians, whether they be the president or the secretary of state, or just some other prominent ones, had made a lot of noise about the um, the Monroe Doctrine, which is basically a doctrine that America established back, I think it was in the 1820s, that said no more European expansion in the Americas, no more colonialization. You can keep what you got, cool. We're not trying to do that, but don't come in and pick on weak Latin American powers, and weak in comparison to the British Empire, the French Empire, didn't want to see, obviously Germany wasn't much of an empire then, but Spain trying to reconquer territory, or I don't know, the Habsburgs or whatever. Didn't want to see a lot of that stuff going on. So they set up, the Monroe Doctrine, is that the U.S. was going to look very unfavorably onto any one of these expansions. And that is partly why, or the Civil War is partly why, the only reason why the um, the French invasion of Mexico happens, is because America is so distracted with the Civil War. But what if some American politicians will say, "Civil War be damned"? Either we should declare this a situation in which is unacceptable, and when we get done with defeating the Confederacy, we will march to Mexico and drive you out. And the French go, Napoleon and the other leadership element there go, huh? So if you win the Civil War, we're going to be at war over our new Mexico, or our Mexican client state, or whatever you want to call it. Oh, well, that means if we're going to fight you, we better fight you now. So that's sort of where I figured, and obviously it didn't happen, and it's super far fetched. Napoleon III wanted to support the Confederacy from the off, but they were in a position where they could just not interfere without the British. We have records from cabinet meetings where Palmerston blatantly refused French entreaties to enforce negotiations on the U.S. Civil War on more than one occasion. Yeah, but I'm just saying this is obviously an alternative history, and I'm going, yeah, what if what if the Americans, shall we say, made too much of a blunder, um, and really push things hard. Okay, look at supply. Okay, they'll get supply there. And here, yeah, they'll get supply from down here. We can maybe make it all the way down to Acapulco. So, yeah, I'm not saying this was a likely outcome and just, almost happened or anything of that nature. I'm going, it's more of a more plausible. See what I'm sort of saying is this is all based upon America's reaction to the French invasion. So if they reacted very harshly and the French decided to do this. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. I have not played far enough into the future, but there was a bunch of Union troops over here that captured Fort Brown and put the Puebla Indians out of commission. Now they can come down here and come out, I think, right here near San Antonio. This gets us up to here if we want to get there faster. So we're going to take the Texas Rangers and head them out here near Gonzales just to sort of skirmish with whatever that might come out. And since we're not really looking at any sort of Yankee naval invasions, I think now we're going to push on this. Okay, so a bit of a back and forth. I think we're going to withdraw you to there, a bit safer. Oh, update. Yeah, update the chat. Update. Oh, thank you very much, Hexaboo. Chat commands won't work for. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Hexaboo. Do appreciate that greatly. Yeah, they weren't working, and I don't know. Maybe we have lost the rights to do that because normal moderators don't have all the modifying rights. So I don't know. Maybe they've changed something. But thank you, Hexaboo. Do appreciate it. Hexaboo is a great guy. He has a very funny streaming style, in very entertaining funny, as I mean that greatly. Does that very well. Okay. Now, we want to deal with these guys down here. So we're going to hit them with this division, Walker's division. And then we're going to hit them with this brigade. On Friday, had the same problems today. Thanks. Yeah, I don't know. Now here we're going to come up to there. Reinforce there. The closest we came to intervening was when Palmerston agreed to demand negotiations on the basis of a separation if the Confederacy at the time in Maryland, Washington turned out to be Antietam after Lee's defeat. Yeah, that's my understanding too. I'm not a big expert at all on. I've read a bunch of books on the American Civil War, biographies of Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee, Jeb Stuart, and some of Shelby Foote's work. I have the 3-volume set of Shelby Foote, but I have not watched the. I'm blanking on the Ken Burns' documentary that uses Shelby Foote's work. I've watched that fully, but I've only read parts of Shelby Foote's great 3-part series on the American Civil War, but not a lot from the British reaction side. But I do understand that it was the loss at Antietam really pushed the British out from whether you call it supporting the Confederacy, or any idea of actually coming into the war, but really kept them from even recognizing the Confederacy as a legitimate nation. That doesn't, in my opinion, necessarily mean war between Britain and the United States. But what it does mean is obviously there's not a lot of controls on military weapons back then as there are today. And so you could buy just about whatever you wanted military weapon wise. Um, and most nations, even big things like artillery pieces and whatnot. And sort of pay attention, but not overly do much about it. And you can put it on ships and go. But the idea of, say, arming up a foreign warship in your port was like a big taboo. So a bunch of the Confederate raiders, and they even several times the British, I know, stopped or confiscated ships once they figured out that they were actually destined to be not just something like a blockade runner, but destined to be a Confederate raider vessel, Confederate Navy. But they generally, the ones they did, they would get them out of port with just a crew that doesn't know what's going on, just any old sort of crew, and then show up with a different ship that normally had some of the cannons and military supplies and a few Confederate officers, maybe a few volunteers, Europeans, um, and then come aboard that vessel and do commissioning at sea and transfer the weapons at sea and mount them on and try to induce some of the crew to, hey, riches, privateering type stuff, and had that uh, not have had that to not have to be covert. Wouldn't have meant, yay, the Confederacy is going to win now, but would have made things a lot easier on the Confederacy. Now, as Plastic Gangster knows, I I I believe in sort of two types of warfare going on, and that warfare is a political act and politics is perception. So, if the American Civil War is going to be a war of attrition between North and the South, the North is always going to win because the North has a larger manpower base, even without whether you count the slaves or not. They have a larger manpower base and they have a much better industrial base. But you can also have wars of decision and maneuver, say like Germany, weaker in numbers of tanks, men, rifles, machine guns, taking out France, Britain, and Belgium in 1940, because that's maneuver and decision as opposed to attrition. Had at the Battle of Manassas, or Bull Run as you may know it, if the Confederates just knew and just got something organized, a battalion, and they had a few battalions that could have marched. I mean, their army was in complete chaos, but they could have just marched something towards Washington. They probably could have taken Washington. Just the panic that set in would have quite possibly had done that. And had they taken Washington, well, that would change American perception, in the very early days on who's going to win and is Lincoln's policy good. And, now I'm not saying had they done that, that means game over, Confederacy won. I don't know what would have happened. It might have been that, but that I think is unlikely. But a, realm of possibility, I would put it at that. Uh, but taking Washington and maybe holding Washington, maybe seeing Maryland getting into the Confederacy because they were a slave state, um, and such might have led to early recognition by the British or the French, and then maybe with the Confederacy holding out well enough, maybe the European intervention. I don't know, but we do have a lot of that. And what Shelby Foote's narrative history is a cracking read, a little biased towards the Confederacy, but it's beautifully written. Probably the greatest work of narrative history. Yeah, probably. It's very good. There's also the legal definition of blockade, if which we recognize the Confederacy would make the Union position. Yes, absolutely. There are almost 20 million people in the Union, and 5 million in the South plus 3.5 million slaves. Absolutely. So yeah. So if it keeps, because there is like the Copperhead movement up in the this part of sort of Michigan, Ohio, which is, I don't know a lot about it. but is somewhere between a actual support for the Confederacy on sort of one extreme, and on the other sort of mild is we shouldn't be fighting over states. If they want to go, they should go. And so there was a so it's not like all Copperheads were diehard Confederates or something, or a bunch of them were just, and not just draft dodgers who didn't want to fight. I'm sure there's those types there too, but just people going, they're Americans. We shouldn't be fighting this war, with them. Slavery's bad and evil, but killing everybody, in battles is evil too, and we shouldn't be fighting this. They just want to go their own way. So there's a lot of things that in America that, even though they have the, like you rightly point out, huge, population base, it's not all staunchly, Union blue forever kind of thing. All right, well, let's push down here. I am going to sort of push for Washington, D.C., maybe up to Gettysburg here eventually. But I do want to sort of clean up some of these peninsulas. Maybe I'm being a... Okay, good, I guess. Let's see, we'll take those out. Okay, that's what I wanted to see if there was somebody down there so that we could move up without bumping into them. Let's do that. 90% of the industry, in the U.S. is located in the North as well. Yes, absolutely. Almost all the war production industries, such as shipbuilding, only Critical Iron Works in the whole South was capable of producing cannon at the start of the Civil War. Oh yeah. Now you can look at the Yankee would be the wrong term for the Confederacy. Shall we say, because I do believe we need to legitimately connect it to cultural heritage coming from Britain, but sort of the Anglo-American tradition that we see the Confederacy getting a lot of arms and munitions production going in the South, even with the blockades, even with all of the stuff. Though saying that, most of their pistols, hey, we made 1,000 of these or 500 of these, model pistols over the few years. It's quite honestly a trickle, but from where they're starting with, it's actually quite remarkable, with the lack of industrial capacity. Good to have you back, Rastlin001. It's a fine myth, but the real truth is that very, very few of the Union soldiers would have marched south to free the slaves. They marched south to preserve the Union. Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. It was a stronger wanting to hold the Union together than wanting to go off and die to free the slaves. But not everybody, that's what I'm trying to say, thought in those terms. I want to move you up here. Better looking up there. I think we can hold out, so we're going to reinforce. We're going to move these guys up to here. There are multiple reasons for fighting the Civil War from both sides. Slavery was the issue, but how do I say this? It was states' rights, but the right they were fighting over was to have slaves. So, states' rights were, the sort of the, um, the, if you will, the, oh, I'm trying to, it's how strong should the federal government be, is really coming down to the situation. Got them out. I'm gonna move up here. Okay, so I just don't want to do the old bump into and have a battle unless I like the odds. You sort of creep up there a bit, you creep up there a bit. Very huge impetus they built a nation out of shoestrings and cotton, absolutely. Oh yeah, no, it's because again, as I say, warfare is a political act. Politics are perception. It's not that the Confederacy needs to, march into New York City and defeat all the Union forces for it to have victory. Not at all. It needs to um, convince the North that it's not worth fighting. And, the peoples of the North. Ah, hello. Okay, let's see. Can we? No, we can't get you down there. We can't get you down there, but we can. Let's see, we're going to come into you here. Well, we're going to come down here to sort of make sure they don't escape from us too much. But we're going to move you down here. Bombard Fort Pulaski. We're going to also use you to bombard Fort Pulaski. We're going to use you to come down here and invade there hopefully soon. We want to protect them, but we could use a few reconnaissance lighter vessels. Coming up with these guys. I think we are also getting to the position that we no longer need. Well, well, I do want to get in there and take that to free up. Because if you read, let me hover over this. European mobilization may increase if there are no Union units within 2 hexes of this location. So we are trying to encourage, as well as hopefully, supply coming in from Europe of munitions by keeping them away from there. Now, I think, yeah, all right. I think we can sort of push here a bit, just to sort of make them a little concerned about their flanks. So I've got these guys on rails so that we can move them. These guys are on rails, so we're going to move them I guess now. Yeah. Right. Okay, so those two French divisions will definitely be of a help. These guys are going to push out to Beaufort to see if there's anybody out there holding it, and if so, how strong. Okay. There. Oh, okay. Attack first with. Oh, sort of does because he moved, but didn't move far enough that we could kill him. Yay, good. Okay. Now these guys up here. Let's go with some of our stronger vessels. Come say hi, because we may bump into enemy contact. Okay. Oh. Alright. Because those were just sort of like vaguely like, hey, there's somebody maybe around here. Without moving in with much heavier French vessels, and I'm hoping there's no ironclads to come in and swoop these up. Hey, ZZ! If a Navy does the Union have left? Well, we stripped a lot of it away. I don't know the answer because of fog of war. This was sort of their last sort of naval base over here. Up here, they hold Pensacola. They presumably have a unit there, and they hold Fort Pickens with naval bases there, and they have that naval base, and they got that little bit of navy there, and up in Hampton Roads out here, they have some more navy. I know that more than just this one vessel. I don't know. I'm presuming an armored clad monitor vessel somewhere, but I don't know. I honestly don't know, but I'm presuming. And who knows, there may be a bunch more up here, but I don't know. Yeah, let's do this. But it was worth it, I think. Get back here into the force. Hold out a little better in case you're pushed. I'm pretty sure there's some more Union forces up here, but I don't know. I'm sure there's some more around Washington, D.C. Yeah, let's just spend it, get you up into the theater here. Have a bunch of French officers or parties in Richmond. I'm sure that would be very popular with the Confederate civilians. Hey, thanks for following. Now over here, okay, two, four, that's a good one to start with, I'm sure. Well, they decided to run away, which is probably smart of them. I think there's some other Union forces here, so I'm not going to push hard right now. We are working on cutting off their supply. Pretty sure there's somebody out in Grenville. Now up here, well, this riverboat is nice, but sort of limiting. Oh, okay. Yeah, let's see. Max. Yeah, we can afford it for the French. May not be buying any new forces this turn, but we'll have the Navy a little better off. Soma. Well, maybe we'll just march north here, but along the railroad, I guess. We'll see from there. I don't know where I want to. Don't know that we need these. Oh, well, maybe I should have headed south. Deal with Pensacola. Yeah, well, let's head there. I'm just not fearing over here. And hello, Cyclops Slayer. Good to have you subscribed with Prime. We appreciate that, all of us here. And just again, I want to be a bit of a salesman for it. Everyone should watch as much Slytherin TV as they can because you get to earn free games and DLCs. Watching the streams, even with the sound off and the window minimized, if you got other things you need to pay attention to, you earn Slith coins. And if you want to, you can scroll down and see the green announcement down there about the Slith store, and that'll give you the details how to redeem the coins you get for watching for the games and the DLCs. And so you should always be checking out what's going on here. There's some really good stuff on the Slith store. All right, so we've got a French army, as in 2 corps, with an HQ. We got this guy down here. Oh, that's right. Before I forget, I sent him to the wrong place, so he's out at sea, and I want to get him up here because I really don't need him so much down there. He's supposed to come. There, he's our engineers. It might have been useful out here, but I really want them in the Confederacy. Sure, Cyclops Slayer. Yeah, everyone should be here. Oh, Terrence from Belgium. Good to see you again. That's Swiss coins. It's not with the U for those with bad hearing. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Hope you're not here saying something else. Imagine how different the Franco-Prussian War might have been in 5 years if the French had veterans and lessons from fighting in the American Civil War. That might have meant no Prussian victory or no unified Germany. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, not by. Okay. Well, I don't know. I know what he's saying, but okay. The French, of course, in the 1860s at this time, do, along with the British, invade Mexico. Now, the British and the French are first start out that they at Veracruz and whatever, I think this other port down here, they occupy because Mexico sort of goes like, oh, yeah, that debt we owe you, yeah, F off. We're not going to pay it. What can you do about it? Well, what they can do about it is invade, and they were going to, and they did for a while, the British, collect the taxes on imported and exported goods. Mexico, and I don't know quite at this time how big the silver mines were. They're definitely going at this time, but they may, I don't know. Because silver, they've been having silver since, the Aztecs were around in this part of the world. So I just don't know how big of a thing it is right now. But it continues on into the 20th century, large silver mines. So they, there's a lot of imported and exported goods from Mexico. They wanted to get repaid as well as cover the cost of getting repaid by collecting the goods. Well, the French decide to, at some point, maybe it was always the plan, and I'm not an expert to know, to try to take over Mexico. And then because that's sort of happening, the British go, we're out. We were just really here to, do the tax collecting, not any of this other stuff. Now, the Maximilian, who becomes, the Emperor of the French, the Habsburg guy. I don't know a lot about him. He seems, maybe it's just the propaganda movies I've watched, but he seems like a really nice and caring guy that wants to bring civilization to Mexico. And there is definite, like we can see over here, definite Mexican support for him. I don't think it's majority support, though. It's not like, oh, hey, he's super popular. No, it's there within a certain segment of people, yeah. But I think it's a combination of bad leadership, bad supply, and probably a fair amount of the guys that joined up from Maximilian's army either think they're going to be on the winning side, as opposed to, who wants to die and be on the losing side, as opposed to, hey, this is the job. Sometimes can be harsh living in, turbulent times, and a good paycheck and a good full belly is worth it. And they might do reasonably well at garrisoning, fortresses or whatever, and fight reasonably well in doing that, but they're not wanting to go charge into battle. In difficult situations where the French army does. But the French army ends up fighting a sort of a guerrilla warfare, basically, against the Mexicans. And again, I am not well read at all on the Mexican or I don't know, the French occupation of Mexico and whatnot. I've watched what's the movie Major Dundee, starring Charlton Heston, or there was a movie on Maximilian. I watched Black and White with Jeanette MacDonald starring in it, and another movie about some Confederates, several including one starring John Wayne, about Confederates and Union people coming down. And so it's a very troubled landscape. And it's a counterinsurgency warfare. And I don't know what the units look like, how attrition they were by the time the French are being withdrawn. And by the time they're being withdrawn, the Maximilian collapses, and he stays. Maximilian stays. He could have withdrawn with the French, but he stays and is executed. Which I take that as a meaning of sincerity on his part. Doesn't mean that, like I say, he's popular or did all the right things, but he, I think, really truly believed in his mission. Because he could have easily bugged out with the French just fine. And I don't think, I don't know if he thought he was going to win in the end or something, I don't know. But so I don't know what that does to the French army that then, roughly 10 years later, 8 years later, or whatever, fights in the Franco-Prussian War. That would be different than an army hardened fighting the Union army. That would have been a very different army coming back. And the old guard, by that point, is not, because we're talking about Napoleon III, not Napoleon I. The old guard that we know of Napoleon the First, that's long gone. That's last battle it fights is in 1815, and by 1870, there's probably a few veterans around still, but they're not fighting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And plastic gangster. Yeah. You only wanted your money back. That's absolutely true. For Britain, that is. And I know plastic gangster is Britain. Usual third world debt resolution. Yeah, that kind of thing, but a more direct third world debt resolution. I get the impression that most of the conservative dons supported. Yes. You mean the Habsburg? Yeah, Mexican Empire. Yes. They did. A lot of the conservatives do support, and the conservatives. You have a very strong anti-clerical sentiment in Mexico, though a very strong Catholic faith. So it's sort of oxymoronic in that there's a lot of Mexicans, traditionally, shall we say, don't like the clergy because they see the clergy as those that traditionally, I'm not saying it does today, I'm talking traditionally, has supported, like the conservatives, has supported the elites. And a lot of the Mexican people do not like that. They do not appreciate that, even though they hold strong religious views down there. So you get, it sort of to a point, and so even on the, foot soldier levels, there are, people that are going to be pro-clergy, pro-tradition, that are going to fight for Emperor Maximilian. Because look, he's a foreigner, but you have a mixed result with Santa Anna, another Mexican emperor, You don't have any sort of strong Republican tradition in Mexico because, it had been a Spanish colony and with viceroys and, even less local democracy than in British colonies. British colonies, some of the colonies were elected governors, some of the, that the Americans, eventually decide not to be part of. Some of those are elected governments, some of those are appointed governments by the crown, dependent on what colony you're talking about. So, there's more of that. There isn't that in Mexico, as far as I can tell, prior to independence. So you got the Mexican Empire, you got the Mexican Republic. So it isn't like, and there is a sense within I think Mexico, as well as looking to Europe for, hey, culture, society, and whatnot, as being a good in and of itself. And so there's a lot of people that can come over to that side. But I also think the sort of harsh reprisal type actions that the French would do to locals when Juaristas, the people that supported President Benito Juarez, attacked them. They do the, oh, hey, yeah, let's go round up a bunch of peasants and shoot them kind of thing. Locally to wherever the attack happened, instead of whether it was the local people, some of the local people or not, or some group of truly bandits that are truly wandering around that are enemies of both sides, that just sort of use Juarista as a call to victory sign, if you will, or whatever. But they're stealing food and possessions from the locals as much as they are from the the French supporters, whether they're the French themselves or just supporters of that, as well as truly patriotic Juaristas existed too. But the French are just brutal and not winning friends. So that I think that their counterinsurgency warfare, like I say, is as much as a problem as anything else. So even though where they might have had support in places, or had, if not support, neutrality from the populace, you get the you know people opposing French rule more violently. Habsburgs were Catholic through and through, and they were the Holy Roman Emperors and very close to the church. Absolutely plastic gangster. So all of that feeds into it. And again, I've had classes in university covering this and whatnot. That was many years ago, and they weren't, necessarily detailed. They were, a few days lecture, not like a whole class on Mexico. Um, the head of my political science department, which I did know and I did have classes of them, he was a Latin American expert. That was his area of field. I had several classes with him, and he covered things like the different political cultures of at least some of the major Latin American countries. That's why I'm pulling this out of memory from many years ago. If I'm getting things wrong, I am sorry, and I'm sure that I am. All right, time for the next turn. Oh, no, not time for the next turn. I want to, because I want to still save up a fair amount of money, but I want to see about maybe doing a river timberclad. We'll do that for 100. And what would this cost? 185. That's more than I want to spend. But maybe we should just get a cavalry division. What would that be? 488. Yeah, I can use some more cavalry. Keep from bumping into units even when I know they're there. And the French don't really have that much, and we're going to save it for rebuilding ships and things. One of the many branches. Yes, very true there, Terrence from Belgium. Now we can go forward. So all of that plays into what's going on. Oh, did I forget to move him? Maybe. I know he was out. Maybe. Well. Okay. Spanish supply successfully run blockade near Charleston. Good. Yep. We still need to take that to get the port back. Okay, it looks so we're getting all of our blockade runners coming in, which is a lot of MPP for the Confederacy. So that is very good. They're attacking our submarine. The first operationally combat-used submarine in the world. I don't know if that was the Hunley, but the Confederacy had that. Yeah. Okay, well, you're pushing up there, fine. And we can't do about something about everybody everywhere. Oh, good. They bumped into our forces. Hopefully we ambush them. Yeah, reasonably well. Holding Fort Smith. Yeah, we didn't sink on the first use. Oh, eventually that is lost, yes. Yes, we can fire in any direction now, absolutely. Ah, there's a whole corps up there. That's another dangerous. Okay, well, we spotted them. That's good. So instead of keep pushing out towards there, we'll go north with these guys. Well, we'll come back and just keep grinding on them a bit. Oh, fly. Okay, well. Okay, well, at least be in supply. Maybe we can run down to Acapulco and get it without too bad. These guys are running as fast as they need. Yeah, let's just continue down here. We're trying to, get up more and more points to keep our Mexican situation in good hands. Let's come back to some of the, shall we say, a bit more critical elements here. Oh, good. It came down to there, so let's build that. And take Baton Rouge. Okay, there we go. Push on their headquarters. Yeah, we know there's somebody there, but that's all right. We're going to reinforce here. I mean, we're in good position overall. And come back to that. Now here, let's start with the attack from the south, because this is a little harder to maybe surround than some of the other units. If we're seriously damaged, then we're not, but we're grinding them down. Good. No, I don't need to do that last one. Just stay there. Think about what we're going to do there. No, we're going to think about that. Do we want to go behind that river? That's maybe a think. Good. Spotted that. I thought there was probably somebody put one of these down. Nashville, I'm sure there is. Costly, but victorious. Now we're gonna hit here now, just because these guys are at full strength in their core, and they could do this this division real serious injury if we just let them sit there at full strength. Yeah, pretty much the mentality of the airport. Yes, easy. Well, if you're gonna have guys that they're like gonna do that kind of stuff, you got to get them into the mentality of, yeah, being surrounded isn't the worst thing. Yeah. Okay. Well, we did equal damage. Well, now down here in the peninsula fighting. Wow, they didn't collapse on us. Oh, we've retaken Williamsburg. And maybe I shouldn't have done that. Ooh, no. Let's hit it that hard if we can. We don't need the horsies down here anymore. They can, okay, well, we're going to reinforce you. So let's move you. Well, I'm back up here. Okay, it sounds like the site of Mosquito of General Nathan, or misquote. Oh, misquote of, gotta read these more carefully, of Nathan, General Nathan Bedford Forrest, when fancying an enemy two enemies to his front, and receiving reports of subordinate command. Charged them in both ways, yes. He was a good military commander, but an awful person, Nathan Bedford Forrest. Well, okay, they've got cores there, so let's see what we can move up. Let's move you up here, you up like this. Did that. Now here, what we're, well, what more can they get to there? See that core up there. These two we're going to fully reinforce. 2 divisions. Well, that's the ones I should have moved. Oh well. Well, these guys can move. Well. Alright, not great, but not bad either. Put that small port back. Now, out here. Oh, we can't put these guys for a naval invasion? Oh, why did I move them down here then? I gotta think about that. I want to get that port back. Now, okay, we have the Yankee Ship out here. Let's sink it. Let's come in here. Okay, you know there's somebody in Jacksonville. At least there used to be somebody in Jacksonville. Guess we got to do something like that then. Damn that cable. Hello, Beam Slam. I mean, my side. Yeah, I don't know if we're the good guys, but yes, we're doing reasonably well. Grandmaster. Yeah, Nathan Bedford Forrest was something of a major founding element of the KKK. But he was also doing other bad things with captured enemy soldiers, particularly of a darker skin color. So yeah, Nathan Bedford Forrest. I some time ago, a few years ago, talked to some activist woman on on Twitter. I should have moved this up before. Guess we'll do it now. And she was talking a lot about all the uh, you know army bases named after Confederates. And I explained to her the sort of military significance of that the generals were military significant. Some of them obviously did fight in the Mexican American War, and as part of a maintaining traditions and healing, that there's good reason to have Confederate soldier statues. There's good reasons to have some bases named after Confederate generals. Now, I would not defend a base named after Nathan Bedford Forrest. Where I would with Lee, Jackson, Jeb Stuart, either the Hills, they're not brothers or anything, they're two different guys with last name. Hill, Longstreet, Beauregard, there's a bunch, Hood, Fort Hood out in Texas. There's a bunch that I would defend, and not as perfect people or whatever, but they're not the monsters that the modern left wants to make them out to being. Nathan Bedford Forrest is one that you study his military campaigns, you study some of his military maxims, but as a person, I really can't justify holding him up as any sort of symbol in the modern sense. Yeah. Oh boy. One of them, I forget whether it was D.H. Hill or A.P. Hill, used to always fight with Lee, not with Lee, with uh, Stonewall Jackson. And Lee would come in and sort of sometimes negotiate a truce with them. But once they got into action, they worked remarkably well with each other. They were constantly feuding over, I don't know what exactly, but they didn't like each other, and they were something of feuding with each other. Where the other one, I think it was A.P. Hill, maybe the one that's I think feuding with Jackson. The other one, and I think it's D.H. Hill, doesn't get promoted after Jackson's death. And he sort of takes it hard, and he sort of starts feuding with Lee and Jefferson Davis. And so he gets sort of put sidelined because of that. But yeah, Robert E. Lee was the true gentleman that is, according to all of his friends and most importantly, all of his enemies. Oh yeah, you know, it's and I'm not going to go into some of the stories, including post-war stuff that he does, that is remarkable for a man of his time. Um, even for a remarkable, even for a how far can we go? Okay, I'm just going to go. Even for a Union general, some of the stuff, particularly post-war, Lee does. So yeah, no, I'm a great admirer of General Lee, not just as a military commander, but as a person. Yeah, I know he fought for the Confederacy and all that, but yeah, I am. A.P. Hill was the guy with the foot cavalry. Oh yeah, no friend of Jackson's, but commanded the First Division of Jackson's Corps and won many of the battles together. Yeah, so yeah, okay, so that's A.P. Hill, and the other one, uh, D.H. Hill, is the one that feuds later after Jackson's death with um, Lee and Jefferson Davis. It's, I've read a bunch of articles, bunch of books. But it's been years. I've not been focusing on the Confederacy as of, shall we say, recently. Okay. I think we've gotten rid of all of the, and I don't really want to get into, oh, well, no. Well, good thing we were fully repaired because, yeah, we just got in a little bit of a fight here with that. It's hard to get these guys in port. It's damaging. Okay, well, let's move our currently worst guy that we can into port to see about getting him healed up. These guys will just sort of head out to sea to not be known where they are in case that guy somehow decides to come out. You come this way. We're going to push on Pensacola a little bit. I think, well, I don't know. March, counter march disorder. Well, these guys, okay. We've got two corps we're facing here, so we're going to use that information to our advantage. We're going to move up here just behind the river. We're going to come back behind the river there, and we're going to come back behind here. So that if they bump into us, hopefully it will be, with the river advantage for ourselves. Okay, we have Longstreet's units here. Two divisions in himself. These guys, I don't know if the brigades, we're going to send them anywhere or not. Where do we send Longstreet? West Virginia? We even get them out here? Yeah, Longstreet. Yeah, Longstreet could be a nice little push into here, into, Tennessee. Yeah, I think, I know. Okay. Also, another thing, Gamer is a very fond. I've read at least a translation of Sun Tzu several times. I really like the indirect approach. What's the path to Washington? Is it bashing straight to Washington? Well, maybe if we get this railway battery up here, maybe with the couple of French corps, get. I know I've sent two corps down here, but I just sort of want to eliminate this on my flank from being much, because I'm hoping to bring all this French Navy up and at least sort of hold here to keep the idea from any sort of naval invasions and leave just minimum forces, even at that, at some of these ports. And so we can move all of the divisions and everything else somewhere else. And so maybe we bash our way into Washington, D.C., or maybe we surround it. I don't know. Push up to Gettysburg, quite possibly. So we're going to see what we can do. And I don't really know. I've not played further than this into the game, so I don't know what's going to maybe show up there. Out here, well, we're doing okay. We've got, a couple of corps here, some other divisions, and we're sort of holding okay. And we're doing actually rather well, and we're going to push into here a bit along the Mississippi. And with this particularly, we're doing very well down here. So we have divided the French into, well, this is sort of, I don't, naval invasion. I don't know why we can't. I don't know if it's because we're sitting right. The port is too weak, or if it's because it's French or because I need to be sitting in a port, so I can't like sit where there's a um, a fortress there. So that's why I thought I could come to here and get into that, but I don't know. So I wanted to take that out. But so if we just bang our heads here and allow all of this to collapse, I don't know that that's a good mission here. But so what we're going to do is we're going to pick these up. 72. I know it's damn expensive. And yes. Okay, we're going to deal with you. And so this is an attempt to march on Washington, if you will, by indirect. Yes, and thank you, Brinohar, for following the channel. Do appreciate it. And this will be a bit cheaper. Still 70. Wow. Okay. That way we keep supplied better. Okay, a couple of divisions, and now we'll have a brigade as well here that we can at least discomfort the Union forces there. Okay, he fought for his state. What people don't understand, yeah, the Union was something abstract concept to most Americans. It was becoming more of a thing, but from my readings dealing around the Napoleonic Wars and whatnot, which include the War of 1812, I'm not saying it was impossible or people couldn't get it, but there were no it wasn't common for people to have a documentation saying that they were a citizen of the United States. And this is what causes the War of 1812, is because Britain decides not to acknowledge citizens of the United States. Whether they were, if they sounded too British, because maybe they were born and raised in Britain, and maybe they came to the colonies when it was still a colony, and they rebelled, as a young man, or were here as a person, and then goes to sea, 1812 or 1810 or whatever, during the Napoleonic Wars when Britain needs all that manpower. And no, they're a rebel. They've become independent, Americans, or whether they showed up in America, 5 days ago, and go, hey, I want to be an American, and there was very little citizenship requirements. You didn't get papers mostly from the government saying you were an American. What you did get was papers from your state to say, oh, I'm a citizen of the state of Virginia, or I'm a citizen of the state of Delaware, or whatever. And they would get those papers as a proof of citizenship, which of course the British were not respecting. So that is what to discomfort the enemy, a good expression. Thank you, Beam Slam. And that's what because I am not silly enough to, unless I really get into some sort of good position, I think, they're cutting off supplies or whatever, probably bashing my head with these two divisions versus one of these corps probably isn't going to be a good idea. But if I can push somewhere here, keep them from concentrating these two corps and pushing, onto my divisions and brigades down here, keeps them sort of separate. So, yeah, there was a lot more of an idea of, statehood. And the Lees, were a very old family in Virginia. I love it. I don't normally like musicals, but the musical 1776, it's a comedy. Now, the history, my understanding, is good. Now, of course, what the dialogue they put into the characters' mouths. Well, at times they are quoting. They do use quotes from recorded conversations, but the rest isn't. But the history is pretty good. It's a musical, and there is and he's sort of a bit of a character, a Lee there, and there were Lees fighting in the, as officers in the American War of Independence from the state of Virginia. So they are, shall we say, old aristocracy of Virginia, and one of their homes was right there, right about right there, and they had several. And the home was called. I always blank on these things. Uh, um, yes, Gamer blanks on things that he knows when I'm trying to call up a name because I've even been there. I've walked around. Arlington. The plantation, the home was called Arlington. And as an FU to the Lees, I forget who it was, decides to turn it into a cemetery. The home is still there. They don't burn it. They don't destroy it. Never occupied again by the Lees. But they turn it into Arlington Cemetery because, really as an FU to the Lees. And so, but the Lees, I mean, they weren't indispensable people like I do think George Washington is an indispensable person. Without him, I don't see America getting its independence. He is truly indispensable. Um, Maybe not after the war. I mean, he does set a great example for the presidency, but definitely in establishing independence, he is indispensable. The Lees weren't that kind of important, but they were damned important for the American independence. So, but also for Virginia. So they're tied to this home in a way, and so, like you say, it's a choice between your nation and your nation. Which your local nation or your national nation, and it is a really hard thing to do. Bell, no, not Bell. Hello, Moche 6511. Good to have you here. You made it into military cemetery. Yeah, Arlington. Papers or not, most of the generals made their decisions on state lines. Yes, Lee was offered command of all Union armies. I know he was. Lee was dead set against secession, but once the deed was done, he said in his rejection letter to Washington that it was the greatest honor of his life, but he could never raise a sword against his state. Yeah. And I don't think, again, I've read biography of him. Again, many years ago. I don't think there was a real question in his mind at really any stage of fighting for the Union against the Confederacy. There might have been a question in his mind of should he just retire to private life, and not fight on either side. There might have been that because I know he sort of struggles over and prays over what he should do, but I just in my mind, I don't see that the real question is which side should I pick? More the let's should you fight for the Confederacy or not? But I don't know. Yeah. Oh yeah. Once Virginia, oh, we need to do down here. That's why I wish I had cavalry with this unit or this army, but I don't. I don't have to always bump into these forces. Oh shit. Okay. Ooh, that would be okay. All right. Let's push on from here. Well, yeah, it's always good to fully take out a unit. Oh, There's more in here than I anticipated. Considerably more. Getting applying command points. Pretty sure there's somebody there. I think there's somebody up there. Over here I need to reinforce that. All right, well. And well, let's come up here and see if we got it. Well, great, good. And we'll actually move you up this way here. Okay. Sterling price, we'll move up like that, I guess. Yes, I know some of these generals' names. Okay, well, oh, we've already done that attack. Okay, some mistakes were made. This guy might be toast, but maybe not. I don't know. Just get all that we can. Forward, deploy, forward, push. Okay, I think with Longstreet coming here with this group, and we may reinforce Longstreet in a bit, we're going to counter march back down this way here. This guy cannot leave the river here. Would be very useful in trying to keep the river clear if they were pushing up it, but they're fortunately not.